me to wear headphones or are we
No,
good?
you're good. We are here. This is Tell the Truth Sports Radio, and I'm a guy that has the two best sports documentaries of all time. Thadeues Matulla, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be back with you, Ron. You know, this is what, the third, maybe fourth time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for the 16th straight year, I think I watched that SMU documentary, man. It was one of the best that and the Boz were two of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Where did you get the idea to do the SMU documentary?
So my father is, or was, he's retired now, but has been a SMU professor my entire life up until like 2 years ago when he turned 80. And so I grew up going to SMU football games. I basically grew up on campus. And so when I was a kid, I really don't remember a time that I didn't want to be a filmmaker. And I also, I don't remember a time when I wasn't an SMU fan. So in fact, my first sports memory is of Eric Dickerson running down the sidelines at Texas Stadium with his jersey half torn off.
Yes.
And so when I was about 8 years old, not about, sorry, I'm just no, I don't want that view. I was trying to trying to make it easier on me visually what I was seeing here.
You're fine.
When I was 8 years old, SMU got the death penalty. There we go. Now I put you full on my screen.
All right.
I'm only at you. I am not looking at myself. It is not awkward anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, so SMU got the death penalty when I was 8, and it was like I had my heart ripped out. You know, when you're 8 and younger, it's when everything is really uniquely yours in a way that is not the case as you get older. And so something very special to me was taken away from me, and they said we were cheaters. And back when you're that age, a year is like a decade, 2 years is forever. And so for forever, I didn't have one of my favorite things every Saturday in the fall, and it was really devastating. And so knowing then that I wanted to be a filmmaker, I always thought I wanted to tell that story. I wanted to make a film about that and learn about it and dig in. And I had always intended for it to be a film, a traditional movie, and not a documentary. Not that I had anything against it being a documentary. I just didn't think of it that way. And it wasn't until at a certain point in my adulthood when I hadn't done a film in a while, and I was like, you know what, I gotta do another film or stop calling myself a filmmaker. And that's how all of a sudden it came into my head that I want to talk to all of these people anyway. Why not bring a camera? And so there was no 30 for 30 when we started that. I mean, 30 for 30 existed, but it wasn't. But no films had come out. It was. And it wasn't a part of the public consciousness at all. And so I started that completely independently. And then through serendipity, the universe conspiring in my favor. But we ended up being a part of 30 for 30, and we ended up being the 30th film of the original 30 films. And there really isn't a metric for me pre what became Pony Excess and after Pony Excess, because at one point I hadn't done a film in a good long time, and things were going nowhere. And then after it was only an 18-month period. It was 18 months to the day after I started that Pony Excess aired after the Heisman Trophy ceremony, becoming the most watched documentary premiere in ESPN's history at the time.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it was right after the Heisman ceremony.
Because we wanted to know, because I remember that time, I was around your age, that I'm going to talk about that period of time. Eric Dickerson, Craig James, they come. And we watched the story, how they got there. Mm-hmm. They're really good. And I'm going to tell you what the problem was. They beat Texas. Texas decided to turn tattletale. Texas did not like, Texas was a big dog. They did not like the fact that somebody that they felt beneath them, SMU, would walk into Texas and win. And like, okay, we can't allow this no more. Instead of playing on a fair game and doing what everybody else does, let's tell on SMU and let's get them in trouble so we don't have to see them, because Ron Meyer was making them nervous because he was getting the Houston guys. He was getting a lot of the recruits, and now they're starting to win, and they were really good those first couple of years. Yeah, 81, they lost to, I think it lost to McMahon in 81. No, 80. And then 81, they were really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yes.
81 was a polyester bowl. They didn't make it because Ron Meyer left. Right. 80 was when they lost to the Holiday Bowl, which I used to love the Holiday Bowls in San Diego. Mm-hmm. They were some of the coolest bowls. And then I want to talk about the 82 season. They kicked butt. They shouldn't have tied Arkansas. I remember watching that Arkansas game when I was a little kid. I remember Dickerson. I'm going to tell you, the one guy that doesn't get noticed is that McElhaney. That was a slick option throwing quarterback. He knew how to run that option. People see Lamar Jackson now. That guy he was short, he was slick, and the option at that time is like the spread offense now. Mm-hmm. And no one ran it as good as now Switzer. We'll talk later about him. Switzer ran it really good with Oklahoma, but SMU ran that to the ground with James and Dickerson and McElhaney. And you didn't know if McElhaney was going to keep it or pitch it at the last minute. It was just a beautiful offense to watch.
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right. And Lance McElhaney, he is the all-time winningest quarterback in the Southwest Conference, history of the conference. Yeah. So, but it's amazing because Ron Meyer, he left SMU and went to New England, and then after he was in New England, he was with the Colts. Now, here's the crazy thing: the Colts were, his last year, Ron Meyer's last year with the Colts. They started losing, and they were losing a lot, and like the week he got fired, he had called Lance and said, I need you here next week. so Lance, after being a real estate agent for a few years, almost had his call up to the NFL.
I did not know that. Now, this is a question I've been wanting to ask you for years. Mm-hmm. Say, for instance, the NCAA did the right thing, and because you only had a tie. Now, we have SMU. We're going to put SMU in the Sugar Bowl. We're going to have Eric Dickerson and Craig James versus Herschel Walker in the finals, 1 versus 2, and have it play out. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about that? Herschel Walker, Eric Dickerson for the whole thing.
So yes, that would have been so amazing. And here's the thing. Dickerson should have won the Heisman that year.
Yes.
And you had something like where he only had a few hundred yards left. I haven't looked at the stats lately, but he had only maybe 100 or 200 yards less than Herschel Walker, but he had it on like less than half the carries, and he was splitting time with Craig James in the backfield. I mean, they would switch off every other drive who was the feature back. I mean, not even like who was hot. It was just every drive they switched between him and McElhaney. So that would have been an incredible game. And I don't think SMU would have lost to anybody that year.
No.
And it's just, I mean, so Penn State is the one who ended up winning the national championship that year. And that was a sympathy vote because at that point, Joe Paterno had never won one. So they wanted to make sure that, and even then Joe Paterno was considered old. He had been in college football forever. And no way would SMU have lost to Penn State or Georgia, or they were the best team in college football that year. And I know you're about to say something, Ron, but I'm gonna say this. I honestly feel they would have never gotten the death penalty had they won the national championship that year.
Very good point.
Because
Very good point.
They would have been back into the blue blood, program, and then the sheer level of support wouldn't have allowed the NCAA to damage the cash cow
Yeah.
as much as they did. But by them not being national champions, they still were seen as this, parochial type school. So anyway, Ron, you were about to ask me something before I.
Okay, Coach Collins. That was the beginning of the end, because that's where you kept getting in trouble with the NCAA with the one player that I thought Eric Dickerson was going to beat up. Now, I forgot the guy's name. I think he ended up passing. That was a bad recruit. David Stanley. And that was the beginning and the end. I think the most, and you had it like a drama movie. This is why I loved it so much. You had it toward the death penalty. You were steering the movie toward there. But the most damning thing was that envelope. When he looked at the envelope and he took his glasses, I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that was on TV." And you had the Dallas Morning News there because you were in Dallas, and that was the end right there.
Yeah. I mean, that was on WFAA Channel 8, and the amazing thing is, that there's a line that Dale Hansen has in our movie about that point where he says, all he had to do was say, "I'm glad you asked. I sent him an insurance form." Now, the funniest thing, so Ron, before Pony Excess came out, I had not been involved in anything as successful as Pony Excess. And so after it came out, the amount of people that would come up to me and talk to me and conversations with you and other radio personalities, etc., it was all great. It was all amazing. But when I really knew that this had pierced the public consciousness was when I was like walking through the airport in Philly. And I walk by one of the airport bars and I hear from the bar someone saying, all he had to do was say, "I sent him an insurance."
Yes.
and we would have to start all over. I stopped dead in the middle of the terminal. I walked over. I'm like, "Were you just quoting Pony Excess?" And like, "Yeah, what a good movie." And I'm like, "I know, it's pretty good, right?" And like, I didn't tell them that.
Do you remember? I was at Buffalo Wild Wings one time, and I'm looking up, and the Pony Express is on, and I text you. I said, "Dude, your movie is on while I'm eating. It's in this." So I was like, "Wow!" And I told the waitress, I said, "I know that guy who's the movie director of this." But that was a great movie. But what was good was like both that and the Bosch, you kind of have good endings. So it did end positive because June Jones came and kind of stabilized the program after all the years it was down. And then that uncomfortable Notre Dame game. It was uncomfortable watching that game. Then it got to the point where Sanders came, Emmanuel Sanders and his group got to a bowl. And now they're finally at a bowl, and how excited Eric Dickerson, the old alum, are back. How great was that moment when you're watching the Hula Bowl?
Oh, well, so that bowl was SMU's first bowl game back since the death penalty, and I had started making the movie at that point, but I had spent the 2009 SMU football season basically embedded with the team because the initial idea before it was a 30 for 30 was that I was going to tell the story through the lens of the 2009 season, because that was 20 years since the return. So I'm basically getting to live a dream by being with the team that year. And then we go to the Hawaii Bowl, formerly known as the Hula Bowl, but by the time this happened, it was the Hawaii Bowl. we went there, and like I was there. I was on the sidelines because we were doing some filming. It was the most incredible feeling. I mean, just this weight, this elation, and I mean, it was such a gift to be there. And the amazing thing is that we did a short documentary on that season. You can actually look it up. It's called All Grit, No Quit. And so right after the Hawaii Bowl, I went back to, I was living in Austin at the time, but working with a group in LA. So I went back to LA to be a part of editing that Hawaii Bowl footage into that short doc and that 30-minute doc. And so while I was out there, and we were transitioning into, it was, we were getting the contract settled with ESPN for Pony Excess. But I'm out there in LA, and we decide we're going to go to the national championship game just as fans. And that was Texas, Alabama. Colt McCoy, the year he got injured. I got to tell you, that was at the Rose Bowl, and as amazing as it was, and sold out, just filled with people, it didn't compare. Nowhere even close to the emotions that I had like 10 days before. That
was your team.
Like, oh, golly.
And now look at 2020. They start out good. They had a good season, but look at your conference is getting recognized. Cincinnati was undefeated. Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to add some playoff teams eventually. So if you do have a good season, you got a chance to be in the playoffs eventually. I think if they do the right thing, have maybe 6 or 8 teams and have the playoff, there's a chance. And SMU's starting to grow. But my question to you is, when is SMU going to play Texas A&M, and Baylor and those teams? Just for the first couple of games before conference play. You think that's ever going to happen?
As soon as they say yes. We've had plenty of seasons where we've played Baylor and played Texas Tech, but A&M and UT have just refused to play us since the Southwest Conference fell apart, because for them it's a lose-lose situation. If they play SMU and they lose, then that's Dallas is one of their fertile recruiting grounds, and so like they don't want to be like they want to tell the people, you need to leave Dallas and come to our school here, and you can win and play for championships. If they play SMU and you see SMU beating them, then it's like all of a sudden, wow, I can play here, and my folks, my parents, my grandparents, they can all come to the games and see me play, and speaking of that, though, that's why they're successful now is they have Sonny Dykes. And so Coach Dykes is the son of a Texas football legend, Spike Dykes, who was the longtime head coach at Texas Tech. So just well known through the state, well loved amongst Texas high school coaches. And Sonny, came up through that, and he actually recruited as an assistant coach. Most of his stops, Dallas was his recruiting area, and so he had been looking at and dreaming of the SMU job all these years. And so the reason why SMU is successful right now and has the opportunity to actually, be back, if you will, and I know that's a weird thing to say, because for a lot of your audience, they're like, well, when were they ever there?
It was the 80s. They were humming
for sure. But Sonny has really done this thing where it's like, where he is like going after these Dallas recruits, and he has changed the perception of the program in the city. And he's also done this great thing about with the new transfer rules, and just, anybody who has gone somewhere else and wants to come back so they can play in front of their family and friends. I mean, he has just
Smart.
done this great job of saying, come here. And so now we have this this amazing homegrown kind of talent base. And now this signing day, we brought in this guy named Preston Stone, who's quarterback. He's the best recruit we've gotten since the death penalty.
Wow.
And he's a quarterback. And I mean, I was looking at it because both Ellinger and Buechele are leaving school, and I look back at their recruiting grades of Ellinger and Buechele from the years they came out, and this guy Preston Stone is above them, and he's one of the he's this is going to be incredible. And he announced a year before at one of the high school senior games that was a showcase. He was a junior that was invited there, and on national TV he committed to SMU a year before signing day, and that was just it obviously led to the best class we've had.
That is awesome. Before I get to the boss, if SMU, say for instance, they make a run like Cincinnati and they go undefeated and they get into if there's expanded playoffs and they get beat by Alabama or whatever, the following year, and you're now an it kind of school, do you think Texas would receive opportunity and say, okay, we want to play you guys now that we see you guys are top 10 and a print? You think they'll do that or still won't do it?
I would hope so. It's strange for me. I lived in Austin for 14 years. I'm now back living in Dallas. Probably the biggest reason that I'm back living in Dallas is I could never become a Longhorns fan because of my early, they were the Yankees, they were the empire, and you wanted your group to be able to beat them. And so I could never become a fan, even though I love college sports. I love all sports, and they were right down the road. But like I would hope that they would. I mean, the first time I met Coach Dykes in his office, he said, and this was before we've gone on these 2 years of having these great records. Like right before these 2 years, I sat down with him. And he said, if SMU were in the Big 12 right now, this would already, regardless of the record last year, this would already be the third best job in the conference because of Dallas.
Because of Dallas, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think Coach Dykes has seen what I'm forgetting his name. Why am I forgetting his name? The coach at TCU.
Patterson?
What Gary Patterson has done over at TCU, because when he went there with he was the defensive coordinator under Dennis Franchione. And when Franchione left to go to Alabama, it was Alabama. Patterson decided that he wasn't going, if he could keep the job, that he wasn't going to go anywhere, that he was just going to build there. And I think that always sort of inspired Dykes in the idea of like, well, look, if he can do that in Fort Worth, what can we do in Dallas? So, maybe
it'll happen. Maybe it'll happen. Now, next, I want to talk about your next documentary, which is terrific, and I never thought it would go to the places it went to with the Brian Bosworth documentary, The Boz. The foundation of Brian Bosworth is from the insecurities of all the issues he had to deal with a demanding father that never seemed to give him the due or the respect he was looking for. And so when he went to Oklahoma, and Barry Switzer is my man. I got a bucket list of interviews. Barry Switzer, Eric Dickerson, and Ron Meyer. Those are three people I went in. And Barry Switzer is the top because he's a cool dude. when I see him on TV, I know you met him and talked with him, man. He's a cool dude.
Yes.
And he came in there, and I liked the story where he came in with the fur coat. And he got him, and he was that father figure because he gave him the love that he was looking for. But because of all the other issues, you got the boss later on with the hair and everything. When you decide to do that, you talked to Boz. What was your impression of him?
So let me step back a couple of steps here. So
okay.
I never thought about doing a movie about the Boz. I didn't necessarily like the guy.
Wow.
Because I'm from Dallas,
That's right.
and Boz is from the Dallas area as well. When he first got popular, he was popular here. Whether it didn't matter that he was at Oklahoma, even if you hated Oklahoma and hated him, it was because of the Dallas connection. There made him a bigger star in town. But that also meant that when he went through this transformation and sort of downfall, that it was very present, and I didn't like him. I didn't like the Boz, and so I got a call from some people who grew up in Oklahoma, and they had seen Pony Excess and loved it, and they were embarking on a documentary where they had both Brian Bosworth and Barry Switzer, plus the blessing of the University of Oklahoma and an investor who wanted to come in with a little money. And they called me just for advice. So they asked me, what do they need to do to be successful with this documentary? And I'm thinking in my head, I don't even know if I want to see a movie about the Boz. And because in my mind, it was like, don't we know that if you know the story, it's in 5 seconds. He was a jerk who got what was coming to him. Boom, end of movie, right? Right.
Yeah.
But then 1 week later, they called me up and they were like, how would you like to direct this? And in and then my response was, how much money did you say you had from your investor? But I immediately thought, you know what? If I directed this, I'd want to see it. So yeah, let's see what we can do. And then it was what really sealed it, though, is that when I met Brian Bosworth, because and by the way, Boz lives in Austin, Texas now, and it's my fault because those producers were going to fly me out to LA to meet with him and his then fiance, now wife. They got wind that this Austin director was going to be coming out to LA, and they were like, why don't you fly us out to Austin? We've never been. Brian Bosworth had never been to Austin. That was a recruiting fail by the Texas coaches at the time. You got to get the guy into town. But they flew into town, and we had dinner, which the dinner clearly went well because we ended up making a movie. But they stayed in Austin for an extra week, and then within 8 months, a year, they were married and living in Austin. And here's the thing, though: when I met Brian that night, I found a guy who liked the Boz even less than I did. He had been sort of unable to grow out of this persona. And the fascinating thing is that when I was first making that movie, I was talking often about how the decision, LeBron James, him leaving Cleveland and going to Miami, and how much animus that had created with so many people. Whether or not you were a Cleveland fan or not, you were just angry at the guy for
his hometown,
being a kid and wanting to go and have fun with his friends. And the amazing thing is, I was saying with making the film, what we're finally allowing Brian to do is to be in the public eye and sort of close the door on that. Mm-hmm. And as we're finishing the film, that's when LeBron decides he's going to go back to Cleveland.
Wow.
And he puts the full page ad and has that wonderful note. And I'm pointing at it. I'm like, see, this is what Brian never got to do. He never got to write that in a way where he could be in the public eye, and have that ability to say, now is the time I'm going to grow up and do, the right thing, etc. And so we gave him that with this documentary. And the amazing thing is that so this film, like Pony Excess, also started as an independent film, and we had to work with ESPN to get it there. But the original producer, the original money guy that got us started on Brian and the Boz, I asked him, what do you want out of this experience? I mean, what do you want out of putting money in besides making money? Because you're probably not going to make any money. And he's like, I really just want to see Brian Bosworth in the College Football Hall of Fame. And I was like, I can do that. and you know what? We did it. The very first vote after the movie came out, he finally got into the Hall of Fame because people were able to separate the antics from the accomplishments.
And speaking of accomplishments, let's talk about that, the 84 season, because Barry Switzer had lost. He was losing to Nebraska and Texas, his rivals, over and over after a good run of all the great running backs. You had Joe Washington, Greg Pruitt, Marcus Dupre, Billy Sims, my favorite. So he was winning 2 national championships in the 70s, 80s. He was scuffling. When Bosworth came there, they immediately became good, and they were really good that year. They tied Texas. That was a ridiculous call. I saw that. They should have beat Texas. 84 was the most ridiculous college football season of all time, because there's no reason a BYU team that played in mid-December in a bowl that didn't play anybody gets a national championship when it should have been the winner of Washington, Oklahoma, when Washington beat Oklahoma. A one-loss Washington team beat up on Oklahoma. Oklahoma didn't come to play. That was Bosworth's first year, but he got him there. Then the following year, they were great because they just – I remember that Penn State – before the Penn State-Oklahoma game, I remember watching – I said, Oklahoma's going to kill these dudes. I said, Oklahoma's going to kill these dudes. And they really beat up on Penn State. And that was a national championship. And he got it rolling. He got that program. Now they're running the option. Now they have the defense. And then 86 came. They played well. But then, the Orange Bowl with the communist comment, that was beginning. And then the agent. And then 87 came. And Barry Switzer kicked him off the team. And then he wrote that book. And when I saw that, I said, oh, man. Then I saw the details. I was like, oh, no, I know that's where he regrets that.
He wrote that book with what's his name, the longtime sports
Riley,
Rick Riley.
Rick Riley, yes.
Yeah, and so Boz, he claims that Riley made up the book, and I'm like, Brian, even if that's true, you got to own this. You can't just run away from it. That had your name on it.
Yeah.
And I told Riley that, and he was like, well, he may want to say that, but he would just come in and talk about whatever outlandish thing, and I'm like, all right, that's going in the book.
And you know what? It was good that he made up with the teammates, but Tony Casillas really he doesn't care. He doesn't like him. He had no use for him. So when you were with Tony Casillas, did he even want to talk about it? They just he just had disdain.
You know what? He was ready. He was excited to talk about it. He wanted to talk about what a jerk this guy was. What a that any bit of fame that Bosworth had really just tore Casillas apart, because he's like this, locker room cancer, only about himself and all that stuff. So Casillas, when we got to him and said, hey, we're doing this thing about the Boz, we want you in it, and they're like, and he was like, I have nothing positive to say about him. And
I see.
I mean, he's like, except for maybe like that he played well. But I was like, no, that's why we want you. And he was, good, because that's what I want to do. I've had all these years to get this information off my chest. And so man, like, it was explosive, that interview. Like, it was one of the first interviews we did on the movie, and he just, let it fly. It was pretty amazing.
Now, this is something that I actually text you about. Boz really, because of the issues he had with his father, who was ultra demanding, he really has took the time out to show the love for his son and to show his son important core values, which I do like about Boz. And because his kid had the communist shirt, and he's like, that's not right. I'm going to tell you what's right about me and what's wrong about me. When I did a lot of wrong things, I don't want you doing that. And he raised him right. And that's what I give Boz kudos on that.
So, and here's the thing. So, his son is the youngest of 3 kids. So he has 2 daughters that are older than the son. And he was in Malibu that whole time. And he felt like that existence really didn't do his daughters favors, sort of coming of age in a place as, unreal as Malibu. And so when his son was about to go to high school, that's why he ended up in Austin, because he was looking at coming back to this part of the country, and wanted to give his son just a little bit more of a solid foundation, and wanted to be active in his son's life during that time. And so that was, we did the interview with him before he moved to Austin. And then there was a like, we did the first, 8 to 10 interviews in a 2-week period. And then there was like a 16-month gap, while, we edited some, and then we took it to ESPN, and ESPN wasn't ready for it at the time, and the investor didn't really want to go back and finish it completely independently. So it just sort of languished there for a while. But eventually, Billy Corben, who directed The U, was instrumental in letting me know that the timing was right. Like the day he got his U sequel, he was like, you need to call ESPN tomorrow and send them the Boz again. And I did, and we got it then. But so like 16-month gap, and now Brian is living in Austin, and his son has started high school, and this whole thing has been about having a real connection with his son. And so then we did that storage unit scene. And
wait, stop right there before I go. The storage unit scene, it was extremely emotional, where there was tears shed. He talked about the bad things he did. There was regret, and there was tears, real tears. His son saw his dad break down. What was your reaction when you're filming that in that garage?
Oh, it was, you could hear a pin drop. It was like everybody was holding their breath. It was, the funny thing is that I don't know. I guess the negative reviews are always the ones that stay with you. But like I read one review that said that the storage unit scene looked totally staged, and I'm like, what? Yes, of course we lit the scene so you can have them go through it. But yeah, I mean, it was the whole thing is that we let me step back a second, because the boxes that were in the storage unit, those had been in his mother's attic since his father had died, and even before. Like, so this was all the stuff that his father had kept, and as we're doing the movie, she's moving out of the house that she had been in here in the Dallas area since he was in junior high, and she calls him up and says, hey, there are all these boxes in the attic that belong to your father. That's all your stuff, or, everything he kept from your playing days. Do you want it? And he says, no, but I'm sure these film guys will. and we're like, wait. We want to go with you, and we want to see you go through this. Now, moms being what they are, the next time he was in Dallas, she was like, I want this out of my house now. And so he didn't look at any of it, and he just put it all these boxes into his truck, drove them down to Austin, dropped them off at our edit studio, and we had our interns went through all of these boxes and then repacked them in the order that we knew we were telling the film and telling the story of the film. And then what we did is we just numbered them and said, Brian, as soon as you open the storage unit door, just go by the numbers, and we're gonna be a fly on the wall. And we were there like the whole day. It was like Memorial Day or something like that, Memorial Day or Labor Day, one of the two. And it was so incredible because they invited us into their experience of this, because Max, Brian's son, there was not, Brian had spent so much time trying to run away from that persona, except for when he would be in public, because that's everything that the public would want. But that he didn't talk about it much with his son, and here he was opening up about it completely. And the amazing thing is, it worked out so beautifully because Max is just so excited about all these
I saw that,
and like, this is so cool. And then you get to see those things, and you're like, yeah, that is pretty awesome. That like the Corvette and all that. Wow, that's pretty cool. And then you have the wisdom of the years, and looking back and Brian's sort of pathos and like knowing what his actions cost him in terms of his humanity. But it was such an unbelievable gift to be there, because it was really closure for him. And I felt like we were invited into a man who was about to turn 50, finally growing up, or had just turned 50, finally able to move on from this persona that an 18-year-old kid created, that he was the only thing that people wanted when he was.
but you know what? He was dealing with regret. Mm-hmm. And what has happened now, he is starting to transition into a more peaceful area of his life, dealing with his faith, dealing with the reconciliation with a lot of Oklahoma players and Switzer. The fans still love him. And you know how I know that? I look at the commercials he does, the Dr. Pepper. He looks so happy. He does a good job with that. He doesn't take himself serious. He's part of that, the Dr. Pepper commercials. And it looks like he's made that transition in his adulthood from the regret and all these years of just all the damage he did to Oklahoma, but now at a peaceful area that he's gotten forgiveness.
Yeah. And he's forgiven himself. That's the big thing, and he's allowed himself to be okay just being Brian. When I would explain what we were doing with making the film, I would say this line that it's in a way it's kind of he wants to kill the boss. And ESPN wanted us to name it that, Killing the Boss. And I was like, that's not what this is about. And this is about him coming to grips that that's still part of him. So while he may want to kill the boss, he's got to come to understand that that's a facet of him, and he actually did all these things, and he needs to own that in order to move on. There's no killing the boss. I admitted, I was like, that's a really cool name, but it's not this movie.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah,
now
go ahead.
how many Emmy award winners? How many Emmys you have?
Just one.
Just one.
I
Should have
I'm
two.
no, for Pony Excess, we were fortunate enough to win a Peabody. So
I would have gave you an Emmy for that. That was, maybe
well,
I'm biased, but
it's a really incredible thing, because before that happened, I never knew the meaning of it's just an honor to be nominated. But like, when after the movie came out, anybody who was in the sports TV world, who had an opportunity to speak to me about it, they would be like, "You're going to win an Emmy for that." I'm like, "Whatever happens, happens." And then when the nominations come out and we're not even nominated, I was like, wow, I didn't expect to win, but with all these people saying, you're going to win the Emmy, I was like, I was excited about the nomination. And I was like, and at that point, I finally understood it's just an honor to be nominated.
Listen, when I saw that Pony XS, I said, I got to get that guy. I said, I'm on a mission. I will go through Facebook. If I have to stalk the guy, I'm going to get him. I said, I got to get this guy on my show, because that touched me. And then the Boz came out, and I said, yep, that's a Thadeues documentary. And it's terrific. I actually do. I talked to a Hollywood friend of mine. I do have an idea. I definitely want to, down the line, the plight of the African-American heavyweights, because I became friends with Jack Johnson's great niece. We're friends. And I said, I need to put your Jack Johnson back out on the screen of his history and all the stuff he went through. If you look at Jack Johnson to Deontay Wilder, you look at all the Joe Lewis's, the Mike Tysons, the Evander Holyfields, the Muhammad Ali's, look at the time frame, look at what they had to deal with, look at the competition and the flight of that, and look at how the world changed and all that. And it's an idea of mine. And I actually got to know Deontay Wilder. So I've been blessed to meet Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson was very nice, Vander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis. I met George Foreman. I met them all. And I'm like, you know what? I've covered boxing for 20 years. It's something I'm thinking about doing. So I might run that by. It's in my head. So that takes we got to do a lot of transitioning to your brilliant touch. But I have to talk to my, like you said, the bankrolling people who are out in Hollywood who would be interested. And I do have a guy who's obsessed with Jack Johnson. I'm gonna run that by him. But I said, I'm not gonna do nothing without the great Thaddeus, because you're like, you are LeBron and KD in the fourth quarter when it comes to this. So I would love that. And you know what you should do, because I'm guessing you're a Cowboy fan.
Of course. I grew up like a 10-minute walk from where they used to practice in the North Dallas 40 days, and before Valley Ranch. So the houses in the old neighborhood, they're like the few that are like gigantic, those are the ones that the Cowboys players built, and then all the others are just a normal size. But yeah, it wasn't like I was somewhere else and I decided I was going to be a Cowboys fan. It was my team. It was right here, And so, yeah.
I want to tell you a Brian Bosworth story. Okay. I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I interviewed Drew Pearson. So he instantly has reservations for his, because he's a friend of mine, is his friend. So he's like, I don't know. I mean, you got a Steeler guy interviewing me. But because I grew up watching the Swans and the 80s and the Dorsets and stuff, I knew him really. I knew his whole story. But he was reluctant because I'm a Steeler guy. So he's thinking this could be adversarial. So it's like you and the boss. So we do the interview, and this was awesome. So after the interview, he said, that Ron guy, I'm thinking, oh boy, he's going to trash me. He said, that was the best interview I've ever done, better than NFL Network and ESPN, because he knew stuff I didn't think he would know. But because I don't have a life, all I do is watch NFL film stuff. So I knew everything about him. So he was blown away. But I understand that. When you said to Brian Bosworth, and because you were Austin, I thought about my interview with Drew Pearson, figured it was adverse. But he told me some great secrets I never thought from the 70s, which was awesome. So we'll definitely talk about that. Man, you are great. I gotta let you go because you did a good job. Listen, man, go watch the Pony Express. Order it on ESPN. Order the bars on ESPN. Make this man enough. He deserves millions of dollars.
Thank you, Ron. It is a pleasure to be with you. Good luck the rest of this year. It can't be. I know it. I know we just had a little bit of a hiccup, but overall, it can't be worse than 2020. It's gotta be better.
We're gonna have a great time 2020.